Hey fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Welcome to this week in tennis. We're going to talk about some new ATP Pro Player string tension gear, news, stuff that happened in the week in tennis. Alright, so the biggest news maybe out of tennis in a short time, sorry about this Stefanos, is that Nadal will be back in Barcelona. He will be playing his first tournament in quite a while. Didn't look so convincing on practice courts. I'm not sure if you've seen practice footage where he's really struggling to serve. He has some abdominal issue that is very persistent for an abdominal injury. I haven't seen one that takes so long to heal. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but he is now going to be back in Barcelona. He has kind of alluded very strongly in his post that this is his last year and it's one of his most successful tournaments, so he wants to play there. Hopefully he can play 100%, might be tough, but maybe 90, 80% and have a good tournament, at least win a match or something like that. We don't want to see Rafa go down 6-2, 6-2 on clay. That would feel very strange, and then you'd rather not see him at all. So Rafa's last year is here. We can be pretty sure of that, but we hope to have some final Vamoses coming this season. There will be no Carlitos either in Barcelona. He has withdrawn from the tournament due to a forearm injury. I talked about it in this week in tennis. He has something that could be potentially a bit serious. Some pundits talk about that it's like this overpronation, how he really hits the forehand. He has really far out there, and that really made an impact on his elbow and his forearm. So it could be something where also the tendon is involved, and then the healing takes much longer. So we all want to see Carlitos. He's great for the game of tennis, but he will be out for another tournament. And obviously it's better to take more precautions so he can play the French Open. So we'll see when we see him next. There's a lot of tournaments on the way. We have Madrid, then we have Rome, and so on. Stefanos Tsitsipas, he's had a big slump in recent times, but now he's back to winning ways, winning Monte Carlo for the third time, and that's really puts him in some historical context. There's not many people who've won this tournament 3 times, and it shows how good Stefanos is on clay. He's really great when he gets more time on the ball. He moves better on clay. You especially see the one-handed backhand, which some people complain about. Still a good backhand, of course, and he really showed that when he played on clay in Monte Carlo. So big congrats, well deserved, and this might be a big confidence boost that he needs for the rest of the season, especially for the clay part of the season, which is his favorite. Jannik Sinner did well, did lose to Tsitsipas. There were some line call questions all through the tournament. I really get confused why ATP don't put Hawkeye on all tournaments, including clay. I know this marks business is something you can use, but usually it ends up in some argument, and in certain cases, like with Holger Rune in his match, for example, it proves that the mark was the wrong mark or the ref was wrong, which is very easy. They're humans, so they cannot really call that. So if you have AI or a bot calling the lines, it's much easier. That there's no complaints that can be made, and we can leave that altogether, hopefully. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe it shows that the Hawkeye technology is not as good as it should be. I don't know, but it's very strange that we don't have that. And I think we really need it. We had some arguments in this tournament. And talking about the tournament overall, in Monte Carlo, it's a great clay court event. I've been there once. I really enjoyed it. Pretty expensive baguettes and stuff, but that's another story. It's Monte Carlo. We had Djokovic doing the orchestra bit. He's used to getting some audience, interaction, which leads to some frustration. He was shouting some stuff as well. He wears his emotions on his sleeve, and that's one way he gets energy. But it was funny to see how different, depending on the umpire and depending on the situation, that they deal with these player tantrums or arguments. Like we had Medvedev going bananas, and Layani, pretty solid guy, really good umpire in my opinion. He didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But then you had Rune, who also tends to be a bit Djokovician in terms of how he deals with the intensity or the crowd, and he was doing something like this. Maybe it was a string of things, but that was the main thing he got a warning for. Djokovic didn't get a warning, as far as I know, for the booing and the doing the orchestra bit that he tends to do. Yeah, so kind of discrepancies in how this ruling is done. And the more automated we can have everything, the better. Obviously, we need a chair umpire to call the shots, especially to call the things that are happening on the court, but feels like there's a lot of discrepancies in how certain situations are being managed, depending on the personality of the umpire. But maybe that's a part of the game and a part of the charm of tennis, that you have a certain umpire, you will have a different type of conversation. One umpire will lead to some other decisions, as long as they follow the rule book. That's the point. We have some string tensions from the BMW Open. And there was nothing really shocking there. I'm gonna have to look at them while I talk to you. But there was nothing that was crazy. Sometimes I like to look at these sheets and find something very surprising. But there is nothing really here. I would say one of the things that stand out is Sasha Zverev still insisting that 23.3 kilos in the main and 23.4 kilos in the crosses, and that's quite a lot higher than I saw from him in the kind of indoor season previously, where he used more like to 21, 22. But he likes to do the decimal stringing, and not only half a kilo, but actually point to the 100 grams. And I find that a bit silly, but that's my thinking. I'm not sure what you stringers out there who string a lot more than I do think about it, but the decimal stringing doesn't make much sense to me. And then there's DT values, and DT is the dynamic tension. I made videos about this, and I use this a lot when I string to make sure that my stringing is up to scratch, but also to follow the tension loss of a racket the more I play with it. And it is done with one of these small devices. I bought one used many years ago when it wasn't for sale anymore. Now they're back on the market, a little bit different design. They used to be yellow, now they're red, otherwise pretty much the same thing. But I use it a lot. I think it's a really great product, and you get 10% off if you use Tennis Nerd when you check out. So you can go to the Tennis Nerd deals page, Tennis Warehouse Europe, 10% off, this one 10% off, and that makes a difference because it's 249 euros or something, and 10% is like 25 euros. So check it out if you want, but it really helps to get the dynamic tension and to understand tension loss, and kind of to know what value you play best with. Some players want a certain DT. Sasha wants 40, for example, but there are a few other values here on this sheet. Some players, they don't have the string they're using on the sheet. It could be that they don't want it because they don't want to let that be known. I don't know. Maybe someone can fill me in here. Maybe they think that Tennis Nerd publishing content about this is not good. We also have a player called Jack Draper, which I think is a misspelling here, I assume, because he plays with Dunlop and All the Power. I know a Jack Draper that does that. But overall, nothing crazy. Players are not super high in tension, not super low. They seem to be in the mid-range here for this tournament. So there was nothing really where you would raise your eyebrows. Tennis Sangren, 39 pounds, pretty low, I would say. So that one was the lowest mark. But there's some players that don't want to stray. They hit hard, like Jack Draper, 55 pounds, all the power, or Alex Mickelson, who plays with RPM Blast at 57 and 55 with his other polystring, what that is in the crosses. Talking about other machines, I've been really trying to tweak my specs. I've been experimenting with heavier specs than I'm used to. For a long time, I searched lighter and lighter and lighter rackets, trying to find more, get more from the frame. And now I've gone back to more control-oriented racket, but with a higher swing weight to have more power. And we did a long chat about this, me and Daniel, in the video called Heavy Rackets, and I'm very happy that you liked it. It has a lot of views for my channel, so I'm very happy about that. We've actually done a part 2 that is coming out later this week, so stay tuned, make sure you subscribe to not miss that, where we clarify some things, get it deeper into other topics, and we also talk about my specs, which I also published today in a members video. And now I am finding my groove with a certain racket, a certain string, and a certain spec. And it's changed a bit, but I'm kind of back home in certain ways. So a lot to learn from that process. And if you have ideas of content you want to see about the racket selection, string selection process, let me know and I'll tackle them one by one. There's lots of resources on tennisnerd.net, of course. But to measure all my specs, I must say I'm really happy with this machine. The MetroTune MetroLab, it's been great because they also give me how I customize my rackets to match them via their software. So and the machine is actually connected to my computer in a way over Bluetooth, so the measurements go straight into my computer for all the rackets I test. So it's been a time saver, and it's been very good for the work I do and for all the testing I do. It's an expensive machine, about 10% off using Tennis Nerd, also on the deals page. There are some podcasts coming up soon, one with Dennis Fabian from Head, some new strings there to talk about, and other gear updates from Head. I also have Henrik joining me for a review about the new Prince Phantoms. So if you're into those rackets, you might remember me being really impressed by the Phantom 100X. That was quite a while ago now. I haven't tried the new 100X, but Henrik seems very excited about that one. We also talk about the Phantom 107, so that review is to come this week as well, if I can manage the time to edit that video. But there's a lot of content coming. I'm also keen to hear if you think the podcast should be in video format on the channel. If you look at the YouTube algorithm, it doesn't seem to like it so much because not as many listen to the podcast as people watch other videos on this channel. So not sure if it would be better for my numbers to not have them there. I don't put any ads on the podcast because I knew you found that very annoying. Because I couldn't really manage the ad spacing. I could for a while, but then YouTube did some changes and I couldn't do it in an easy way. And then I decided not to do it anymore, so there are no ads on it. I make zero money. That's not an issue. It's more that if there are no views on the pods, it's a bit tricky to motivate why they're there, not only in audio format. But keen to hear your opinions if the video and the availability on the YouTube channel makes a difference and it's something you appreciate. Then I'll keep them. That's it. Have a nice day, and don't forget to play some tennis.